This will be the public hearing, the first of three on the proposed millage increase. Second one is tonight at 6 o'clock, and the third one is next Wednesday, July 24th at 9 a.m. And then the commissioner will consider and take action on at 10 a.m. his meeting on July 24th. We've taken a sign-up sheet, and we've got about 10 people, I think, has signed up to speak. So we probably limit that to about 5 minutes a person, so we can keep the process moving. And I'm just going to give a little presentation briefly to explain our rationale in recommending this increase. So first off, the proposed millage rates for the unincorporated area. The county millage last year was 7.73. And the proposal is 9.68, a change of 1.95 mils. The chart shows the overall millage for the entire tax bill, which includes the county schools, the state millage, which is dropping slightly. And so the net change is 1.9, and the percent change is 7.4. I wanted to emphasize that because a lot of folks, we have to advertise by state law the percent change in the county's millage. And so the county's millage is going up 25%. But your overall tax bill is not going up 25% because the school board is not changing their millage this year. Now, that's what we're told. I mean, they haven't made a final decision, but I understand the recommendation is not to change their millage. So your overall tax bill will go up about 7.4%. And then for the incorporated areas, it varies city by city. I just took Cartersville as an example. The incorporated millage is 9.05, and it'll go to 10.97. The incorporated millage is a little higher because the insurance premium tax is used to roll back some of the unincorporated millage, and the cities get their own uninsured premium tax that they can apply directly to their budget. And then the city of Cartersville, you see, has a 1.38 mil, which is unchanged. So the total tax burden for someone in the incorporated city of Cartersville is going from 28.86 to 30.73, 1.87 net change, or a 6.5% increase. So that was just, I wanted to emphasize that, as a lot of people have said anecdotally, oh, my $1,000 tax bill is going to $1,250. It's not. It's going to go, I think I have examples on the next page. The average house in Bartow County is $125,000. That would be an increase of $97.50 for the average homeowner, or $8.13 a month. For a $250,000 house, a much nicer house, be an increase of $195 or $16.25 a month. So that's the amount we're talking about. That's for the unincorporated area. Next slide is just the city of Cartersville incorporated area. It's slightly less, as I said. That millage change is a little bit less. So it's $96 for the average homeowner, or the average house price, and $16 a month, $192 for a $250,000 house. Now let's see. We wanted to point out, that this county has been run on a very low millage for a long time. And even after the proposed millage increase, this compares our 2013 millage to the 2012 millage of the adjoining counties. So we still fall the lowest below Gordon, Cherokee, Polk, Floyd, Cobb, and Pollock. And as you can see, some of those other counties impose not only an M&O millage, a maintenance and operation millage, but they impose a separate fire district millage. Some have recreation bonds, some have solid waste, some have general bond millages. But your net county taxes overall in all those counties is anywhere from a little bit higher to several mil points higher. Now the reasons for the millage increase, as we came into office and looked at the situation, our overall budget is about $64 million. 38% of that is property tax, 25% of that is sales tax, and the rest is various fines, fees, payments, permits, and so forth. All of those have experienced declines in different amounts. So the property tax digest overall has dropped about 9% since 2008. The real property portion, the aggregate of everybody's home and commercial industrial property is down 23%. So the overall digest is not down 23% because there's actually been some gains in the utility class, in the motor vehicle class, and personal property, which is business property basically gets taxed. So that's helped soften the fall from overall digest, reduce the fall of the overall digest. But the average property tax bill is basically still down 23% since 2008. In addition, the millage has been dropping since the peak of 8.5 in 2005 to 7.73 in 2010, and it's stayed flat since then. The millage drops due to the rollback that was built into the state law in 2000. For every year there's inflation in the digest. If your property tax goes up because they reassess your house $10,000 worth more, then the law says the county has to roll back the millage or call it a tax increase to keep the same millage. So Commissioner Brown has, never, since he had a tax increase in 05 that brought it up to 8.5, but since then he let it roll back even when the digest was falling. So you see we lost a good bit of millage along the way in the last several years. So you combine that the digest is down and the millage is dropping and the revenue from property tax has dropped a good bit since 2005. Sales tax has been the more recent problem. In 2010, from 2010 this was the peak of sales tax and the revenue is down 17% on average through June. A big part of that is the utility sector. The utility sector, we collected in 2010 about $23 million in sales tax. The utility sector was $10 million of that. So Georgia Power Plant Bowen, they buy a lot of coal and they pay a lot of sales tax. But come 2011, the price of natural gas got so low that they cut way back on their burning of coal. And they ramped up their production of electricity with natural gas in other parts of the state. So they started paying a lot less sales tax, down to $5.8 million in 2012, and they're on pace for even less this year, in part because they had that explosion in April, which took the whole plant offline for a couple of months, and now they have 2 of the 4 units burning, and they hope to get the 3rd one up in the next month or 2, and then they hope to have all 4 back in operation by the end of the year. But natural gas price has risen some, but it's still more efficient for them to burn natural gas than coal. So, they're not shutting that plant, thankfully for us. There have been some communities that have had their plant shut, so you lose hundreds of jobs and you lose millions in sales tax. So that, Georgia Power is investing $700 million in new pollution control equipment at that plant, so they're committed to making that an even cleaner burning coal plant. And so it'll stay, on our tax digest, but it's been a problem for the last couple of years. It's just causing, that kind of a reduction. I mean, I didn't put up there's been the general sales tax decline just caused by the recession across all sectors. And this year, what seems to be contributing, to additional drops this year, the Georgia Agricultural Tax Exemption, the GATE program, is a program that the Department of Agriculture gives tax exemption cards to folks who register as farmers. And they anticipated 6,000 or 7,000 people would qualify for this program, and through April, the program just started at the beginning of the year, through April they had over 30,000. So they think a lot more people are signing up for that than they anticipated or probably should get that exemption. And so that's hurting sales tax revenue. And then the title ad valorem tax. People, when they buy a vehicle now, they don't pay sales tax anymore. So they pay this title ad valorem tax, which is supposed to make up for the sales tax, but we haven't seen that so far. Just in June, the combined splost and lost one penny each. The county's revenue was down $500,000 from last year. And so, we're not seeing anywhere near that much coming back in from title ad valorem tax. So there continues to be dropping all across the sectors. The state will only give us so much information on sales tax. It's all confidential. So we don't get to know what Walmart pays, what Home Depot pays. They won't tell us anything about individual businesses. They'll just give us broad information across 12 sectors. What's the auto sector, what's the utility sector, what's the food and, what's the merchandise sector, etc. So you don't know what's particularly happening. We've seen the auto sector fall from $150,000 a month to about $30,000. So that's where the TABT sales tax has disappeared. And on the backside, we haven't seen, in our tax commissioner, I think he's out posting properties today actually, but we just haven't seen that much coming in from the TABT side. So that's kind of a big question mark. Other revenue decline, we just had, courts revenue's been down, people less able to pay, less permits, less construction, less use of county programs and stuff. So in general, across the other spectrum of our revenue sources have been slipping. There have been a lot of budget reduction efforts over the last 4 years. The payroll is down over 50 employees from the peak. Nobody's had any raises in 5 years. The county staff has been on furloughs for 12 days of furlough a year for 5 years. Here we're in the 5th year. And the county has deferred a lot of purchases of vehicles and equipment, which is basically unsustainable. We've held off buying patrol cars for years, buying vehicles for the different departments, and we still need those vehicles. They're just, the fleet's getting older and older. So, That strategy would have worked better if we had just had a 1 or 2 year dip, a typical recession, but the length of this recession has just kind of created a big wave of vehicles that start to need replacement at this point. The budget overall, looking back at it historically, has dropped the $6 million from the peak in 2008. And the county, one of the big concerns we had coming in, the fund balance is what it's called in government parlance, but it's the reserves. It's the rainy day fund for the county. And the county's spent about $5 million of that in the last 2 years to meet the budget. So it's basically had to dip into the piggy bank because the existing revenues haven't been sufficient. The fund balance peaked at $14 million in 2006, and it's been sliding ever since, and it's down to just at $7 million in 2012. So, if we kept the millage the same, we would see it dropping down to $3 million or less, which is basically nothing for a $65 million budget. The Government Accounting Standards Board recommends 2 to 3 months as your target fund balance. So that'd be 13 to 19 million. So we need to get, the fund balance back up at some point when times get better. Other reduction efforts, a lot of, if you look department by department through the county budget, a lot of budgets have been cut anywhere from 10 to 25%, and I've listed some of the ones. The ones that we can cut, we've cut, certainly the demand went down in building, engineering, zoning, as development dropped off. Services are actually up in some of these other, the rec budget has dropped, but it's serving more kids than ever. The courts are, busy as ever, but their budgets have dropped. So everybody's tried hard, including our elected officials, to cut their budgets as much as possible and not fill people who retire and make do with what they got in terms of equipment. There's been a few budgets that have not been able to cut or have gone up a few percent over the last 4 years, and those include basically to what are the mandatory essential functions that we have to provide. And often their budgets get increased by state mandates that get handed to us. Like the probate court's a good example where the additional background check and so forth with gun permits, which gun permits went up, with the whole political situation in the last 6 months, and so the demand's up for gun permits, but the costs are up because the state has shifted more of those costs onto the probate court. But that's typically, the General Assembly, the states had to cut its budget too. If you follow the news, they cut their budget every year, but a lot of what they do is they shift those costs on down to us, or they stop providing support that they used to provide. The state used to provide computer support to the Superior Court, for example, for their computers. They just said, we're cutting that, you guys pick it up. So, they don't provide us any funding, they just throw additional tasks onto us when they don't have the money. So the summary, next slide, from my review of the situation, we're providing the same or a higher level of service for less cost than over the last 4 or 5 years, and mainly a lot of that's been on the backs of the employees, not getting raises and having to take the pay cut that it is a furlough. Last tax increase was 2005. Some people have said to us, how can you be raising taxes? Clarence never raised taxes. We just wanted to set the record straight and say there was a tax increase in 2005 that was 19%. But that has rolled back, down almost $1 million since then. And so we've had a situation where the millage has been falling and the digest has been falling. So, I think if you've owned your same home since 2008 or beyond, if you compare what your new tax bill will be to what your tax bill was in 2008, I would just tend to think for most people, you probably won't, you might get close to it, or you probably won't though, because you should have had a fall in your value and a fall in your millage. So the total, again, for unincorporated is going to be 27.78 for 2013 under this recommendation. And that breaks down, 35% county, 64% school, and 1% that state piece. And then to just break down a little bit on the county budget, where does the money go to, the $64 million? It's half basically public safety, which is the sheriff, the ambulance service, the fire service, and the 911 service. Then 16% is general government, which is all the administrative functions. 10% are the courts, the judicial system. 7% is basically roads, the public works. 5% is recreation and culture departments. 5% is the solid waste department. 4% is health, welfare, and so forth. And then 3% is planning and community development. And I think we've got animal control in that slice. So that's where the dollars go. There's not really a place that I could see to cut the budget without starting to cut services. And so some people might say, you know, I don't use the rec department, can we cut that? And, you know, people with kids would say, well, you know, we don't use the senior center, cut that. And some people might say, well, I think you give too much to the indigent. Others say, maybe you shouldn't spend as much on animal control. I mean, there's always people who have their favorite services and they don't care about other services, but we have to balance all those needs. All these departments serve thousands of citizens. And certainly when you talk about public safety, you know, nobody wants to lose a fire station or tell the sheriff, take some cruisers off the road, you know, cut back on your staff of deputies and so forth. So we really don't see where you can cut without impacting services at this point. And we don't see any appetite to do that. So here's the county budget in dollars. And so this is the translation of that chart, you know, 32 of the 64 million in those 4 departments I mentioned, etc. And then the final slide is just sort of, if you think about your tax dollar, you know, if you think about that, 64% is the schools, 35% is the county. That's how your dollar breaks down. For every tax dollar, you know, you're spending 64% on schools, 18% on public safety, 5 cents on general government, 3 cents on the court systems, etc. So, you know, that's all the presentation I have, Commissioner. So now we can take public comment.
Thank you, Joe. Can you read that? Okay, we're ready for public comments. And
Brandon, if you'll call them out.
I think we've got, how many, Brandon?
We have about 8 or 10 signed up so far.
Okay. And we're going to try to limit this to 5 minutes. And who you got first?
First speaker is Arthur Heller.
Okay.
I didn't know if I was going to have to stand up, but since I'm here, and I'll try to be objective rather than aggravated like I really am about the tax reform. First of all, I'm a retired individual with a fixed income, and we're seeing taxes go up. And of course, in the roll down of our taxes, we're going to see the taxes go up to implement Obamacare, and I think that's not justified because that makes me paying taxes twice. And to better distribute it, we should impose a general sales tax to take care of a lot of that. I also see by your presentation that sales taxes are down 17%, and that's why partly my property taxes are going up. And to give you a background on myself, I own about 10 properties in the Bartow County, and the ad that you put out to have the meetings says it's a 25% increase. Well, your math is wrong. All my tax bills show it's above 30 to 33%. So I have an issue with not controlling spending, and that's why I'm taking the time here to have your forbearance to get up and say a few things. I've seen certain parks fall down, like for instance Bartow Carver Park is shut. I know we're still paying somebody to run it, but try to use the boat ramp or rent the facility over there, and you can't hardly do it. That needs to be looked into, in my opinion. But that's just one thing I wanted to mention. I think people are being unfairly targeted, being homeowners, to pay taxes. Steve, you came to the Bartow Carver Exchange Club, which I'm one of the directors, and you were asked what were you going to do about taxes, and they were going to remain the same. And I won't go into all the details, but I think you'll remember that's what you said.
That was which exchange club?
Bartow Exchange, Cartersville.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think I have any other members here. I would say we could cut the sewage facilities. We've got to start with Washington, D.C. first, so I don't think that's a problem. I'm trying to be a little funny here. In 7 years, my taxes have doubled, and now they're going to go up 30 more %, and I think that's wrong. I am going to protest them. If we have this much of an increase, and I assume that every department has been audited, but I think there ought to be a public audit of all the departments. And I'm not for firing people, but I am for eliminating the number of people that we take on in the county and passing on down to people. And then you got big retirement programs that you got to pass on to people. In the real world, when you're working for a place like Lockheed or one of the state universities, your days are being cut 1 day per month. That's how, one way they're achieving cutting in these bad times. And we do have, our dollars are going down, our property values are going down, and it doesn't make sense to me to put the burden of paying property taxes on an increase. So I think we're going the wrong direction again. I think we need a general sales tax to support this issue. Property taxes, according to your presentation, have gone up 38%. And are 38% of the revenue, and sales tax is only 23% of the revenue. Again, I'm saying you've got millions of people coming into this county, and a lot more people don't own land than do own land, and we need to be proactive and initiate a sales tax, a general sales tax, to take care of our fund issues. See if I've said everything I need to say. If I have a vote, and I don't know if we get to vote on this, I don't think so. My vote is no. I am going to file my 10 complaints, not complaints, but
Appeals.
huh?
Appeals.
Yeah, appeals, because my taxes are unjust, and I'll see how well we can do there. I guess that took care of all my notes, and I don't want to be put in a position where I have to spend money to advertise against cutting taxes. I think probably everybody here to talk to us is feeling the same way I do about it, but my vote is no.
Thank you, Mr.
That's
Hill.
your final, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next speaker is Johnny Crumpton.
I just briefly say, sir, we don't have no authority to change the sales tax. You know, that's set by the state. So if we had the option to raise sales taxes instead of property, that could be something we could consider.
Well, you have to go through a process to get it
I mean,
done.
the last time that was put on the ballot was the TIA, the Transportation Splost, and folks shot it down. So there's not an appetite, I think, to raise sales taxes either. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Johnny Crumpton. I live on Old Grassdale Road. This problem's been going on for 2 years. I haven't been able to come and meet with you yet, Mr. Taylor. I've been home this week. That's why this problem has really bothered me. But we got a road that there's no through trucks out there.
I'm sorry, what road did you live on?
Old Grassdale Road,
Old
by the steel mill. There's a section of road once you pass the steel mill until you get to Keith Road. There's 4 signs that's posted now. Actually, in the 2 years I've been able to get Motor Carrier Division to put the signs up, there was no signs at one time, and now there's 4 signs up there, and the trucks has went down from about 200 trucks to maybe 50 trucks a day. But this week I actually been home on vacation. I ain't went nowhere. I've been around the house. I've seen 3 hazardous material loads come through my neighborhood. And I'm sure anybody in this room would not like to see the explosion in their neighborhood because of a tanker truck problem and this road has really became very, very heavy traffic because they built the new Catskill High School out there. So now they've added at least 300 teenage drivers. It just so happened 3 weeks ago, my lady was turning in our driveway, stopped, blinker on, everything. 17-year-old boy, not paying attention, runs into the back of her truck. Just if that would have been one of the roll-off trucks or one of the 18-wheeler trucks, and he didn't see that truck, he probably wouldn't have seen the other truck. The boy would probably have been dead because he'd have went under the truck. We are so concerned that there is a death going to happen on that road. I've seen 3 times myself an 18-wheeler coming around the curve. Their tandems will be over the yellow line. I've seen 3 teenagers take the ditch to keep from going under a tandem. One day they're not going to react, and they're going to be up under a truck. And I don't want to really see anybody's teenager in my front yard dead because I've asked for help through the sheriff's department, through the motor carrier department. I have been through everything I can do. If there's anything else I can do, I would love somebody to tell me how to do it. Because this is, like I say, 2 years, and it's really, really has helped. And I would love to sit down and have a meeting with you, personal one-on-one. It's an accident waiting behind me. And that's the only thing I'm concerned with. It says no through trucks, and right here is the Bartow County thing.
Yeah, we're aware of that situation, and we, just recently, Judge Scoggins, and, he actually, the traffic tickets come before him, and I and Randy Gray, our road department superintendent, have went out there, and you've got a legitimate complaint, and what we're, thinking of doing, or what we have already started, the process of trying to route that traffic back through Peoples Valley Road.
Right.
And that road also had no through trucks, but the dilemma we've got a steel mill and industry out there, and if we put no through trucks on every one of those roads, they've got to be able to get to where they're going.
Right,
You know,
there's a sign right there as you come out of the steel mill that's been there for 8 years.
I understand that some of those guys are missing that sign, and they go out there and then they get rolled up for being on that
Actually, it's
particular
the
road.
same people. If you go out there every week, it's the same people. They think they're better than the law. Actually, if you turn on the CD and just listen to these guys on the CD for one day, they actually laugh at the sheriff department. They laugh at it and say that they know when they're gonna be out there. They know somebody's got connections somewhere, somebody's telling somebody something. But it's a big joke, it really is.
Well, they have wrote some tickets out
Oh,
there.
I
I'm not saying
understand.
they're catching all the guys that are doing that, but they've been writing tickets.
But it's definitely, it's just I'm telling you, with the school out there, somebody's gonna get hurt. And I really don't wanna see it. And if it does, I'll be the first one to be on the witness stand saying that I've been working on this for 2 years. I got documents on everything. And the sad part about it is that we see sheriff's cars up and down the road, but they're not stopping the trucks. They're not. I mean, I literally followed one just to see, you know, he was 2 car lengths behind the truck. 2 cars in between. Never once did he ever, truck went all the way through. I got in my truck, followed him and see, he went right straight down to the truck stop. He wasn't on call, he wasn't on, I don't know. And I'm not trying to say, it's just that we see sheriff's deputies out there. We call sheriff's deputies out there. They're not enforcing the law. It's almost a waste of time if you're gonna be out there, up and down the road, you're not gonna stop these trucks. It's just a waste of time. You know, like I say, anybody's got a solution that I can do anything, go any further, talk to anybody else, I would be glad to do it, because we're just trying to get some help. Our neighborhood is a small neighborhood, but it is still a neighborhood. There's kids running up and down the road, there's kids lives in the neighborhood. We don't really need this. So, but I do appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Next speaker is Don Cornett.
I'm waiting my time with the threat of the next speaker.
Thank you, Tom.
Next speaker, Earl Pitts.
Good morning, my name is Earl Pitts. I live at 20 Sweet Eloise Lane here in Bartow County. Just recently returned after 2 years where my wife and I had been gone for about 8. We came back. This, I've got to say today, is in behalf of firefighters who do an excellent job in this county. And I appreciate it. And I thank you. In many communities across the country, the existence of a local fire station is a matter of significant pride and assurance. It is needed for emergency responders so they can arrive quickly and bring an incident to a safe and successful conclusion. Reasons for such concerns are both simple and complex. They range from a lack of responders to a range of fundamental budgetary issues. And I say budgetary issues due to the fact, where's our tax dollars going to help our firefighters? That could eliminate or reduce entirely the response and capabilities of responders. Insurance Information Institute reiterates that fire remains the leading cause of property damage and losses and carried in home awareness marketplaces today. As key municipal decision makers and communities of all sizes come to grips with current economic realities, the fate of individual fire stations and related response times in the League of Cities, this is called a crisis. But Bartow County doesn't realize that this crisis is not as of yet. The worst may yet lay ahead as the pace of personnel reductions, layoffs, and appears to be worsening throughout the country. The NFPA, all of you know that is the National Fire Protection Association, and standards and those provided by the Commission on Fire Accreditation are all designed to save time, seconds, off emergency calls. Also, the ISO Insurance Services Office announces information from its fire protection classifications to almost 47,000 fire protection agencies across this country. Fire protection services in three major areas: the emergency fire, communication, and water supply. I've mentioned water supply because I live more than 3/10 of a mile from the nearest fire hydrant. It takes, in order for a fire station, by the time they get the call and it comes to my home has already been burning for 7.5 minutes. In less than 9 minutes, my home can burn to the ground. I don't appreciate that. I look at, in case I have family in my home, they could die due to smoke inhalation if they're laying in their bed asleep, or maybe if they can't get out because of the smoke. That's one of my biggest concerns here in Bartow County. In Bartow County alone, people, I don't know how many of you know this, I have Station 1 is in fair shape. Station 10 is in fair shape. But Stations 2 through 9 only have 2 men a shift to fight fires or go out on emergency response. 2 men. That's 6 men throughout a day or 3 days. Then Stations 11, 12, and 13, they fall under the same category, people. You need to wake up. Wake up. Think about these guys and what they need, Commissioner. The NFPA, again, this is to count seconds off emergency calls. Also, the ISO Insurance Services Office analyzes information from its fire protection classification. And again, I said 47,000 fire protection areas across this country. Fire protection services in 3 major areas, and I mentioned the one right there already about water supply. With that water supply, have we got enough pressure or volume in these fire hydrants? I have no idea. Is it a 4-inch main or is it an 8-inch main? Where's our water department? How come we didn't get fire hydrants put out in our neighborhood? Why? Why did you stop where you did? That needs to be looked into. When everybody else, I go down Highway 61, in less than a half a mile, I find 10 fire hydrants. Why? Have they got all those fire hydrants there when there's nothing there but an airstrip? From the ISO, it has determined fire stations in the United States lack basic response capabilities. On the surface, it may appear to have effective emergency response times. And that's what they've looked at here for many years, people, that, hey, 2 men's all you need to go out and fight a house fire or go to an accident. Here less recently, on Highway 13 and 61, a young man died, 22 years of age, was hit by a man 61 years of age who was drunk. The response was 2 men. Why? Wasn't there more there? Maybe this young man's life could have been saved. In actuality, to do CPR, you need 2 men, or a man and a woman, or 2 women.
Sir,
Here you had 2.
you've hit 5, so if you could.
My wife's going to give me her time. She's next. So now we've got that scenario. Nearby fire stations with adequate and inadequate staff, equipment arriving and having quick access to a water source. Woo, water source. There again. Again, my hydrant's 3/10 of a mile from my home, and there are other homes out in the same area who go up to 1 mile to the nearest fire hydrant. Boy, that's bad. Most fires can intensify rapidly. Yes, a A trailer can burn down in less than 3.5 minutes, people. Your home can ignite in less than 7 minutes. You'll have a major fire in 9.5 minutes. Your home can burn to the ground. You need to think about this, people. Yes, homes are being built better today, but yet when they build these homes, instead of it being like it was years ago, what they call an 8,000 BTU, which is what's known as a fuel load, people, today it's between 16 and 18,000 BTUs. Homes today are constructed with lightweight materials. Adequate personnel would be required because of the lightweight construction of materials that can ignite fires and intensify them today in less than 6 minutes time. Firefighters, you're still the heroes. I don't care what anybody says. OSHA. Woo, everybody know what OSHA is? Occupational Safety and Health Administration. This requires that at least 2 firefighters enter a structure. And if I've only got 2 firefighters at my station and they're called out, guess what? They can't go in. You know why? Because there's nobody on the outside. There's 2 men in, 2 men out. So therefore, if I have a family member that's inside this home and it's smoke inside there, there's a fire, they can't go in and rescue my wife. She's going to sit there or lay there and die from smoke inhalation. I'm not happy with this. But it's 2 men, 2 out, 2 men out. So I'm just going to start counting body bags in my home, I guess. Right now, I just need the one. That'd be my wife if she's in there and she can't get out. People, I'm not for nor am I against your tax increase. What I am for here is for the firefighters of this county. They need at least 36 men right now to fill positions at these stations. Where are they? Where are the tax dollars going? Why haven't we got these men? What's going to happen if this does happen? And somebody does die because we don't have the responders that we are needed and what OSHA requires and what the NFPA requires. We've known this for how many years in Bartow County, and nothing's been done about it. Instead, we go out and buy ladder trucks, or we go out and buy vehicles. So what's going on with the money? Where's it at? That's my concern with the tax dollars. If I'm paying my taxes, where are my responders? Why haven't they gotten any help? Thank you.
You want me to say anything about that?
You can.
I would just point out, I mean, the fire service is $7 million of the budget. There's about 90 firefighters on the budget. More than one truck responds to a fire. Don't you all send 3 to a structure fire? I mean, 1 truck and 1 ambulance respond to every 9.
And that's one driver in a truck and 1 driver in an ambulance.
Right.
When that truck leaves that facility, there should be 2 or more in it.
Two firemen respond in every truck and 2 EMS respond in every ambulance to a 911 call. To a structure fire, they're going to send at least 3 trucks. But the point is, to put 4 guys in every truck, 24 hours a day, you got to remember, to add 2 guys, you got to add 6, because they got to cover 3 shifts, and more really if you think of vacation and holiday. So you'd have to add at least 66 firemen to put 4 in every truck, which would increase the budget of the fire department alone probably $4 million. So, it's been a question. I'm just saying, sir. I mean, we have a category 5 rating for ISO, a 5/9, depending on where you are with the water service. And, to get to a level 4, 3, 2, or 1 just costs more and more money. So it's a question of, a balance. I mean, if the county really wants a level 1 fire service, the fire chiefs will jump up and down in excitement, but your fire budget would have to be $20 million a year, and our millage would have to go up 7 or 8 mills just for the fire service. So, we're in much better shape than a lot of counties that have just an ISO rating of 10 or a 9 or an 8 and so forth. We do have a 5 in many parts of the county. The water service too, I mean, that's, as you notice in the budget, no tax money goes to the water department. The water department's an enterprise fund that pays for itself from the revenue that people pay for their water service. So that system expands as it can based on its own revenue. To rapidly expand the water service everywhere where the demand doesn't justify it, in other words, where there's only, say, 1 guy a mile down a road, to run a 6-inch water pipe out to him might cost $1 million. They can't bill that guy enough money to make that pay for itself, so they won't do that until there's a demand there. If we wanted to put 6-inch water lines in front of every house in this county, there again, we'd have to spend millions of tax dollars to do that. So that's another question of balance, you know. So that's just the reality. I mean, if you want to have the higher level of service and across the water system, the fire, if you want to have officers sitting out in front of your subdivision, sir, and catching every truck, you know, the sheriff say, give me 15 more guys to ride the road. Of course, that's another 24-hour service, and to put 15 more guys on the road means about 60 more on his staff. So, you know, we have 260 in the sheriff's department, we have 90 in the fire service. We spend a lot of money on those agencies. We could spend more. We could get a higher level of service, you know. But it would just require all the more tax dollars. So I appreciate you standing up and saying you think we don't have enough, you know.
We don't.
So, you know, I don't know how many other folks here would say, I would like to see my taxes go up if we would spend it on the fire service or public safety. You know, the sheriff would support that, I know. So, but, you know, we have to strike a balance between a reasonable level of service and a reasonable amount of taxes. So that's all I want to say on
Okay,
that.
thank you, Peter. Brandon?
Shirley Spencer, did you still wish to speak?
No, thank you, Alderman.
Thank you.
Okay.
John Watkins?
Started getting stiff sitting there so long. I'm John Watkins. I live in the Cassville area of the county. And I just want to say that over the last several years, I have tried to watch very closely the workings in not only local government, but state government. And so quite honestly, I am not surprised that we're here today with a millage increase. Up front, I want to let you know that, yeah, my taxes are going to go up, but they've gone down for the last several years, and my tax liability. So I expect them to go up, and therefore I support the millage increase. Wish it had not had to be so much, but it does, and in my little world, which is limited to the print media, I see a couple issues that are causing it to have to go up. The first is the previous commissioner, who had, from what I could tell, ample opportunity over the last several years to make small increases in the millage rate. As was shown in your presentation by the county administrator, that didn't happen. And so things have compounded over this period of time. In addition, we have the issue of the state over the last several years eliminating revenue sources for local government. And they have, in my estimation, been acting like playground bullies, and in a couple instances have taken money away from the county and put it into their own budget to balance it, which is definitely not fair. I worry that that's going to continue for the future, and I truly hope that you, Mr. Commissioner, will, along with the other commissioners in the state, band together and, along with the voters, beginning with the folks in this room, you know, talk to the legislators and tell them to keep their paws off of local government. If local government has a problem, then it's only right for the state to get involved. If local government doesn't have a problem, then leave it alone. And unfortunately, that's not happening. As I told you, I think in the first meeting that you held this year, my hope is that this tax increase will help you eliminate furloughs, help you eliminate layoffs, and help you provide some salary increases to the employees in the county that deserve a salary increase. And with that, I want to close by saying thank you for taking responsibility for the fiscal health of Bartow County. And lastly, I want to commend you for your courage in doing so.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Next one.
Next speaker is Mike Bearden.
Hi, friends. May I move this back a little bit, given what some of the things I may say? I don't know whether I can trust these guys behind me. But I can, I know that I can. Thanks, Commissioner, for the opportunity for input. Despite a smile, I take no pleasure in being here, but I, as many people here, have a responsibility to be here. I've got a couple of minutes of context that'll lead to 2 or 3 recommendations. Cut me off at 5, but I hope to stay well within that.
He won't quit at 5.
Does that mean you give me approval to continue?
Give you a few extra seconds.
We have, my view is in contrast to a couple of the comments. I think over the past years, as we've made this transformation from a small rural county to a large one that includes some 100,000 souls, we've had unchecked county budget growth. Recent years, you make the case rightly that it's been a huge struggle, and it continues. But the biggest struggle is on, as you know well, our hardworking, tax-paying citizens. Statistically, about half of whom in Bartow County are either unemployed or underemployed. We are an average, statistically, United States county, and that's what the numbers say. Tough times that continue. So things have changed, dramatic change. And this toughest result is what I'm here to focus on. That's the biggest need, as we all know, are jobs for those folks. Secondary to jobs, though, I remain convinced, is not increase taxes, but reduce taxes. So the second most pressing need that we need to do to compete, and I'm going to go into a little bit of that, is lower taxes, not higher taxes. These are changed times, conditions are new. The past is not what we're looking at. It's time for the government to become more responsive and smaller, not larger. Given what you've proposed, you'll now go down in history as the sole commissioner has proposed the largest tax increase ever. I hope to be proved wrong on that. Commissioner, you apparently support continuation and perhaps even growth of the present size of county government, and you seem prepared to defend each and every budget line item. It's well past time to stop punishing so many of our good employees through furloughs for everybody across the road, and to continue this practice of holding on to others who may not really add value to service for our citizens, and resulting in reduced morale for everybody and lower performance. It's just not humane. It's time for tough love to be administered in county government. Let me speak in clear terms and not dance around the issue through the confusing millage rate legal speak that seems to come out, not just here, everywhere. But times have changed and we can no longer afford unconstrained spending anywhere. So let's talk in terms of budget and spending. Mr. Olson, you and the Commissioner have justified your position by comparing us to our adjoining surrounding counties that indeed were our peer group 30 years ago. We looked no different than Polk and Gordon County then, but folks, that's not the county you should be comparing yourselves to. Our counties like Cobb that are 6 times our size and as urbanized as any county in the state. That makes no sense. What we are similar to and who we do compete with for those jobs that we must get are counties across the South, cold, excuse me, that have 100,000 populations roughly, that are in close proximity to large metropolitan areas as we are, and that aggressively go after added opportunities during these lean times for their citizens. Winning jobs and quality of life comparisons against such a peer group of those counties is what you must do, what you should do. We have nothing in common with Polk and Gordon other than being adjoining to it. If we remain a high budget and high tax county, we will continue to lose plum opportunities. We will get small margins. Your budget comparison should be to such jurisdictions, not to our adjoining counties where we were 30 years ago. We do not wish to squander the promising future that Bartow County has with our unique situations by holding ourselves back to those past standards. A quick look beyond our small neighbors leads me to challenge your assertion that the county budget is lean and there's nothing there to cut. I point you to a short set of statistics from some quick research done in a couple of hours the other night on 8 counties across 5 southern states of North Carolina, South.
5, but
Am I 5 already? I haven't got to my recommendation. I'll be glad to sit
Let's give
down.
him another minute. Please.
5 counties, 8 counties in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Georgia. Each of these are situated differently, ringing around Raleigh, Charlotte, Greenville, Augusta, Nashville, Chattanooga, Dallas, all about 105,000 population. Half of them about 105 population, and of those half, those 4 counties, same population as us, half the budget. Half the budget. The other 4 range 75% bigger than us, almost identical or smaller than our budget. These 8 counties are our competition. You must establish benchmarking to measure the performance of our departments and every employee and every cost against those standards, not 30 years ago. Further, for privatization practices, you need look no further than Sandy Springs, just 40 miles down the road, for a national model of where a government has successfully reduced costs through creative privatization. Without all those measures, we're going to be caught in the trap in continuation of the past, and we will not be able to compete. I regret that I'm not going to finish all my comments, so I'm going to go to my last recommendation. Those 3 recommendations: public release of a report that identifies how departments, employees, and costs perform against real peer counties, not against straw man counties that have no relevance to our situation. Secondly, a full evaluation that allows you to prioritize all of our costs in these tough times, and a public release of that report. And then thirdly, a public release of how we compare against those counties. Lastly, if during this suffering time that we're all experiencing, if you cannot retrench, if you cannot change, reverse your present course, I for one will do what I can do to seek our state delegation to submit legislation in January, looking for a 2014 voter referendum seeking the establishment of a multi-member commission in Bartow for 2018. We need to have responsive grassroots representation in our very large county. Thank you, Commissioner, for the opportunity to speak my mind. I apologize for running over. Thank you for allowing me to. I'd love to talk about 3 more minutes, but I'm gone.
Okay.
Next speaker, W.D. Proctor, Benson, 2 Cadden Ridge Road.
This is W.W. Puckett.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Everything I had to say has already been said, so I'll decline.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker, Brian Chittum.
I'll decline.
Okay. Next speaker, Elaine Smith.
My name's Elaine Smith, and my family, we've owned property in Bartow County since 1929. I'm from the Pine Log area. I appreciate the fact that the county workers have worked without raises and that there's a need for all these services. I really do. My husband has gone through similar circumstances in another area. My comment, our taxes are going up 81% from last year. A lot of my neighbors are. That's a hard pill to swallow. And then with the increased millage rate, wow, that's going to be more than we ever expected. I have a lot of neighbors with fixed incomes, and my concern is, will there be an influx? Will people be trying to sell their property, and then it will drive property values down? I just hope you have considered, if there are areas like ours where there's been such a dramatic increase in property taxes, that those funds would be considered before you look at raising the millage rate. I don't live in Bartow County at the moment, but I wasn't familiar with some state law that was addressed in the presentation about why Commissioner Brown had to leave the millage rate. There was some balance you had to address.
Anytime that when the good times are here and your property value is rising and the whole tax digest, say the whole tax digest goes up 10% because of just reassessments, then the state would say you have to roll the millage back an equivalent amount to take off that same dollars, or you call it a tax increase, to keep the millage the same. So you follow?
Okay.
So you get an automatic rollback to offset the increase, not of your particular house, but of the county's aggregate. Right. Individuals can vary.
Okay. Just surprised at the tax increase. I know this is a different area, but what the tax assessor says our property is worth versus what we could get, which I'm sure a lot of folks in Bartow County feel the same.
You realize there's an appeals process?
I do. Thank you.
Yeah, the Board of Tax Assessors, is once we cross 100,000, is set by the grand jury, and so the commissioner doesn't put the numbers.
I truly understand.
So we have been hearing that there have been some farms that have seen dramatic increases this year. I don't know the answer for that, other than you'd have to check with the appraisal staff. They look at sales and they look at the area, and they must have seen evidence to show the value.
Right. I have.
So the other question I typically ask folks when they say their tax bill's gone up so much, would you sell your house for what it's assessed at? Most people say no. It sounds like you would take it, but most people say, even though it went up, I still think it's worth more than that. So, their goal is to get it to fair market value.
Oh, I truly understand that. I do. But it was, are you looking at that? If there's a majority of the property in Bartow County, if the assessed value has increased this year, that's a tremendous amount of revenue, I think.
Yeah, the digest overall for this year to last year is up 0.7%. The real property portion is down $100 million, so the average of real property still fell, even though we've been hearing from people who've said, and some people in our office have had increases, some have had decreases, so you just get that anecdotal evidence. The personal properties picked up okay, the business, evidently businesses are doing a little better because their aggregate value is going up, and motor vehicles has gone up a little bit, and so, but overall the digest for this particular year is up 0.7%.
Last thing, is it possible for us to get a copy of your presentation?
Yes, this is getting posted to the website, this PowerPoint. There's also the press release we sent to the press, which is about 4 pages long on a Word document that's basically got the same information. That's on the website. What link is that under, Kathy?
It's under the Commissioner's Office, under the public notices.
Okay, so Bartow County Commissioner's Office. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Next speaker is Bill Cook.
Thank y'all very much, and thank you for being here. You're all brave. We're here because I think you had said the millage rate needs to go up, because what we're trying to do is increase the millage rate because the tax digest is down, which is values of properties, right? And my job, I'm a real estate investor. All I do is go out and knock on people's doors. If I see a house for sale, I knock on the door. So, real basic guy. I've done it for about 18 years. I'm going to tell you what happened this past April. And the reason why I'm telling the story is, this is going to, what you're really talking about is a double tax increase. Because we're talking about raising millage rates because the value of properties is down. But the truth is, the value of properties is now going up. So if you raise the millage rate by 25% and the value of properties is going up, you're not going to pay a 25% increase. It's going to be, from year to year, a good bit more than that. So in April, I was at the foreclosure auction. I go to the foreclosure auction every month since 1995. When I was at the auction, I realized the cheese had moved. Everything had changed in Bartow County. In April of 2012, I was at the auction. There was 5 investors there bidding. 5. There was 180 properties advertised for foreclosure. In April of 2013, there were 82 properties advertised for sale. That's 100 properties less being advertised for foreclosure. Also, the number of investors on the steps went from 5 to over 50. The price that people were willing to pay on the courthouse steps at the foreclosure auction has just shot up to the point where Kim and I have not bought a property on the courthouse steps at the auction since, I think, October of 2012. So values are going up. So when this happened on the courthouse steps, the way I try to find out where the cheese went is real simple. I go out and knock on people's doors, and I go look at houses. In October of last year, when I was out knocking on doors, I saw a lot of houses that were vacant. You know the ones that have been winterized, they have the little tag on the front door? Okay, the house is vacant, it's been winterized, someone's gone in and secured the house. And I saw these houses all over Bartow County last year. And there was no for sale sign in the yard. It's just sat there vacant. And the lender had either foreclosed on it, did nothing with it, or the lender had, the people had just vacated and the lender had secured it. When I went out in April, door knocking, I came across a lot of these houses that had been winterized. But every house I saw had a for sale sign in the front yard, a realtor sign. Every one of them. And when I called the realtor to put an offer in, every house had an offer. So I offered to put in a backup offer. And the realtors told me, there's already 2 or 3 backup offers. So the real estate from last year to this year has changed dramatically. So values are going up. And I saw that, what's happening. So the numbers you're working on, when you say the millage rate is down, the millage rate is down when you look at 2012, because you can only look at numbers through January 1st of 2013. You can't even look at you can't look at what's happened in 2013. And the cheese moved in January or February of this year. It didn't move last year, but it's moved now. So values are going up. So again, I'm looking at this as a double tax. Millage rate up, values going up. That's double tax. As far as cutting costs, I'm going to tell you the story of our business. And I know it hurts when you have a county is just a business. So here's what we went through from 2006 to now. We had to lay off 3 of 3 employees because our business dropped. We didn't have a choice. We had to lay them off. So we lost all our employees. We lost our office building. I didn't lose it. I sold it because we couldn't afford, just me and Kim there. We had all this extra room, so we had to sell it. We had to get rid of it. And also, in January of, I guess it was 2008, I went around to all my tenants. I called them up and said, we have a problem with your rents. We need to change them. I didn't tell them why, we just said that. And so I went to go meet with the tenants, and they were scared to death because they thought we were raising rents. And what I told them was, we have to lower your rents by $100. But because we have a lease, we can't lower your rents unless you sign this agreement. So on all of our properties, and we have a lot of rental properties in Bartow County, we lowered all our rents by at least $100 or more. We had no choice because if we didn't, they were going to move out. If they moved out, we were still going to have to come in a lower rent and rehab the house. I spend all my time in people's homes. They call me up, I have a house for sale. Since 2006, talking to a lot of people, I know a lot of people who have cut a lot of their spending. We talk about county government going to their savings. I know people who have used every dime in savings, every dime in retirement. And then they turn around and they lost their house because they couldn't afford the house. That's not taking care of your budget. Maybe it wasn't their fault, maybe it was, but that's what happened. So one of the things I've learned in business is, as things dry up, as you don't have the money, as savings run out, you have to cut. The way Kim and I did, where you had to lay people off, you had to sell stuff so you can keep your head above water. In the end, when property taxes go up, this won't bleed a dime off me and Kim. We will not lose any money. The reason why we won't lose any money is we will have to raise rents. If insurance goes up, we raise rents. If taxes go up, we raise rents. Our tenants pay more. That means our tenants have less money to spend on going out to eat, buying clothes, buying a car. So tax revenues will go down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
That's the last question.
Okay. We're going to be back at 6 o'clock tonight, and for those of you that didn't get a chance to speak, or if you want to speak now, you've still got time, but if you want to come back tonight, for those of you that haven't spoken, you'll be welcome to speak. And I'm sorry?
I'd just like to say one thing. I'm one of those people that gasped when you talked about what a small amount the taxation was gonna go up for my husband and I. It's 43%. 43%.
You're talking about with your assessments also.
Of course, yes. That's what we actually will pay
Yeah.
well, that is without an increase. In other words, the estimated tax bill that we got is paying 43% more, and now we're talking about increasing that. It's real that this is happening to people. I don't know who's paying less, but it's not some of the people in this room, and that's why we're here.
The total tax digest for the county is like less than 1%, I think. Is that right, Peter?
Yeah, it's up about 0.7.
About
The real estate
0.7.
property still fell from about, the real estate portion from about 2.15 billion to 2.05 billion. So although some are seeing increases, the aggregate is still down. So there again, you'd have to appeal if you don't think that value's right. I mean, I'd ask the same question. I mean, have they reached what you would sell your property for? Have they reached the fair market value? So, I mean, taxes are supposed to be at the fair market value. Few people's are because, as Mr. Cook pointed out, it lags. You know, you look at the property value as of January 1 and the tax office looks at the previous year's sale. So it takes a while. You know, this year's increases will show up in next year's taxes or decreases or whatever. You know, people were upset that their values didn't fall fast enough. But the point is, if your assessment's below what you think your property's worth, it's difficult to complain about it because it's supposed to be at what your fair market value is.
It's not difficult for me to say, in a public forum, that my taxes without this increase go up 43%. That is not difficult to say because it's true. And I deeply appreciate our county government. But I also know that we spend less when we have less. So I appreciate your taking the time to listen and to understand that there are many of us out here that do not experience the average.
I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add to that also, my assessment, I know this is more appraisal value, has gone up 108%. And that's without the increase. And, you know,
Yeah, I can just say appeal it if you don't think it's justified.
that's where my intentions.
And they want to look at the evidence of what the fair market value is. So unless you can show that they're over the fair market value, they're unlikely to cut
I
it.
just know adjacent property, one property adjacent to mine goes for like 10,000 an acre, the other is 40,000 an acre. You know, there's large variation there. There needs to be some uniformity somewhere.
I'll give you a little education on the tax system. I mean, you know, the tax assessors are charged with determining fair market value, the real value of your property. Then you're assessed at 40% of that value, so that's the assessment ratio. And the state of Georgia every year comes in and looks at about 1,500 sales in the county, actual sales on the courthouse steps, wherever else, and compares the sale value to the assessment. And so we get graded basically every year on how well we do, and we have to be within a few percent of that 40, either under or over. So we're typically a couple of percent under. So, you know, there's a whole process in place to try and make sure we assess properties at the accurate fair market value, and the state comes and reviews the digest to make sure we're assessing things at the fair market value. And so we've been hitting that milestone pretty well. I don't know if our chief appraiser's here, but. And so certainly if you have an individual property and you feel like the tax assessors have missed something, you know, you've had some reason that your property's worth less, please come and appeal. I think we get about 1,500 a year. And you can take it to the Board of Appeals first, the Board of Assessors, or rather, you can go to the Board of Equalization beyond that. And then you can even go to court beyond that or to an arbitrator, different options you have. So I'm sorry if folks are upset about their individual assessment. We have no control or authority over that, but there is an elaborate process to challenge it. But I'm just saying to people, I know nobody's happy when their tax bill goes up. Mine went up this year, but it's still less than I take from my house, so I have a hard time objecting to it. You know, they still haven't gotten it right in a sense, and certainly none of us are rushing in to say raise my assessment. You know, I think my house is worth X, so you know, if your assessment's gone up, you know, and it's still below what your house is worth, you've really been under-assessed, and that's the condition typically of most of the county. I mean, most properties are under their fair market value.
I'm going to also say the assessor's office is great to work with. Those are the best people in the entire world. I love working with them. They really try.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. You have a question?
Would y'all come up, because then we can't really get you on the news media and you report and so forth, and tell us your name.
Thank you.
Good morning, still morning, Stuart Manley. I wanted to rephrase this lady's question because I think several of us are hitting at the same thing. The assessment notices that are on the street right now, are those assessments considered in your current budgeting process? Or is it a timing issue and you're looking at, say, last year's values?
No, the budgeting process is based on the digest, which was just completed at the end of June. The assessment notice, the same information. What's different, you know, the state law again, they changed the law a few years ago to make the county put an estimated tax bill on the assessment notice. Well, that's something the assessors do based on last year's millage. So the assessors don't know what's going on in the budget process, and we can't make the decisions on the millage until we see until we see what the digest is. You follow? So they don't have the information. They can't have the information when they send the assessment notice out, because then that triggers appeals, and we try to get through as many appeals as we can, because that changes the digest before we know what the final number is, and we do our calculation.
So
some people have said, hey, my assessment notice said this mill, and you're proposing that mill, and that's the reason why.
So our budgeting process is really looking at old data?
No, it's looking at the current assessment right through the end, the current digest right through the end of June. It's, you know, as late as we can. I mean, it's supposed to get turned into the state by August 1st. So, you know, we get a preliminary one June 25th. It gets updated, you know, throughout July as appeals get filed. So it's as current of information as we have. It shouldn't change more than plus or minus 3% from where we. Well, if you looked at the notice in the paper, I should have put that in my slides, but we put the 5-year history of the digest and so forth. You know, it shouldn't change for more than plus or minus 3% from that by any remaining appeals that aren't resolved. You know, they're still working through. But
See,
it is.
I think what you're hearing from several of us is the feeling that the real estate portion of the digest dropping is not. It cannot be correct.
Well, I mean, I guess the folks are here maybe who have had increases and are upset about that. We don't have the folks here who are still getting decreases, because the overall real estate portion, the overall digest, including utilities, personal property stuff, as I said, went up 0.7%. But the real estate portion, which is about 2/3 of it, fell down about 5%.
I heard you.
So,
and for reasons this gentleman conveyed, I don't know how that could possibly. How could there be any number of properties in Bartow County whose value went down?
well, I mean, there's still been, I mean, anecdotally, the folks I'm hearing with tax increases tend to be like large farms in the north part of the county. So there's still been, I don't know everybody, like I say, there's 44,000 parcels in the county. I have no idea about every parcel. But what Mr. Cook was talking about, you know, last year's foreclosures, so he was bidding on foreclosures in April of 2012, he said. You know, all those foreclosures were still driving values down last year, and those are the sales that have to be looked at for the 2013 tax bill, because they assess your property as of its value on January 1, 2013, or January 1 of any year. So your tax assessment we're talking about that you got in June or whatever was the value of your property on January 1, 2013. That's the goal. And they can only look backwards at sales that occur in 2012. And they try to get the most recent sales. Maybe there's only one sale in your neighborhood in March. So you see what I'm saying? I mean, the county's 44,000 parcels are divided into neighborhoods. They get grouped, and they reassess each neighborhood every year and try to see what's going on in that neighborhood.
You're raising taxes because of the shortfall of sales tax collection.
Basically, we can't raise sales taxes, sir. There's no legal mechanism.
Well, there is a legal way to do it, and it just
No,
takes...
sir. There's 4 cents of state sales tax, and there's 3 cents of county sales tax you can have. The LOST, which we have, the local option sales tax, which is split with the cities, the SPLOST, special purpose local option sales tax, which is voted on every 6 years, which was reauthorized last year. That only goes to capital projects. You can't use that to fund maintenance and operation. And then the education SPLOST, which is, we have no control over that. That's the school board, and that's the same thing. It's voted in by the voters, and it goes to buy school buildings. There's no authority to put another sales tax in unless the General Assembly changed the state sales tax.
Well, that's the point that I'm making, that we need to orient ourselves to pursuing that objective, because there is a solution to it, to redistribute how taxes should be spread rather than make him and me pay the burden by
I mean, that-
50% more.
That's a huge political question that the General Assembly would have to take, you know, and there'd be as many people out there fighting the sales tax as there are, you know, supporting it. For every property owner who said, let's put it on the sales tax, all the businesses would be out there saying, don't put it more on our customers, so. You know, and all I can say,
Taxes.
the only point I was saying was we had it on the ballot, last year, the transportation splosh, you know, the regional transportation projects, that would have added 1 cent for the region, you know, the 15-county region, to build regional transportation projects, and that would have sent us to 8 cents, and the voters shot that down in this county, and in 49 counties in the state passed it, and 112 shot it down, so there's not a lot of appetite for sales tax increases either, unfortunately.
Thanks for clarifying, and just to summarize, you have taken into account in your budgeting process the latest information, so the people that got an increase in assessment are going to get a double whammy, and that's factored into the budget. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I don't want to get up there on camera because mine actually came down.
You need to go home.
I don't want to film. My home actually come down, but I would also like to say that I appreciate the services the county offers. I'm a pretty simple guy. I think the dump's probably the most important thing to me, being able to go over and dump my trash. And the recreation department, where I see kids playing, and it looks like to me it's just a great investment in our future. When you have these kids something to do other than the sheriff having to go out and pick them up and put them in jail. So I appreciate everything that the road department does, keeping our roads clean, keeping them cut. And, you know, I'm sorry my taxes came down, but, you know, they send me another bill.
I'm about the same boat as him. You know, I'm not complaining about taxes. I'm not complaining about anything. I want to commend you on the job that you do with what funding you do have, because I've been fortunate. I worked for the city of Gardensville for 30-something years, and they have other revenue makers that the county doesn't have. And it's a whole different ball game, and I've never lived anywhere but Bartow County, but I want to commend all of you for the job that you do.
Thank you. I agree.
Agree.
Anybody else?
Sir, you can certainly stay seated if that's more comfortable for you.
I'm Quentin Hall. I live out in White, which is in Bartow County. My question is simple. I'm on a fixed income, obviously. And because I make over a certain amount, the fact that I'm on disability doesn't help my tax bill at all. Because the monies that you can make per year are so low that it doesn't help me a bit. And being that the taxes are going up, are you going to change that table?
I'm not sure.
I
He's
think-
talking about the income first.
Well, you're talking about the homesteading, or the exemption for folks under certain income?
Yes.
All those are set by the state, you know, as far as I understand, so they're a little outside of our control.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think the income level is $10,000 for some of that stuff, which you know, is extremely.
I got something else. I know Mike hinted at this, but as far as going to a multi-commissioner, that can't happen I know we had it on the ballot one time, but that's not going to happen anytime soon, I hope, is it?
It would have to come from the legislature.
Yeah.
So,
But that process will take...
you know, if the people vote on it and that's what we decide as citizens, that would be fine with me. But anybody else?
I'd just like to make one more statement. I've heard a lot of you talk about high taxes and whatnot. I'm originally from the state of Virginia. In Virginia, we don't have, number one, a homestead exemption, which in Bartow County brings your tax liability down. Number two, we don't have an exemption for being over 65. When I hit the age of 65, my Bartow County real estate taxes came down again. Nor do we have an exemption from any state income tax other than just normal exemptions. I pay, because of my income in the state of Georgia now, 0 on state income tax. If I made the same amount of money and lived in Virginia, I would be paying up to 6% of my income. So it depends on the state you're living in as to what taxes are. All of you that have an issue with taxes in this state, you move to Virginia and you watch your taxes go up. And I've had friends that have transferred to the state of New Jersey because of the corporation I was with. And they fell apart at the taxes up there just for schools. You know, and this was 20 years ago, and they went up there and all of a sudden they're paying $2,000 a year just in school taxes. And the children there get the same education as here. So just wanted to share another perspective on, you know, it depends on what state you live in, and not only what state you live in, what county or city.
But we don't follow their model. That's why we're here.
Okay, if that's all we got, we're gonna adjourn and we'll be back here at 6 o'clock tonight.